Hey guys, so we have here a traditional wireless Bluetooth speaker, and in this video we want to show you how to convert this speaker to wireless charging. Now in this case, this is here the JBL Clip 3, which charges through a micro USB port on the bottom of the speaker. Now we received this speaker because the USB charging port is completely destroyed and you cannot charge the battery of the speaker anymore, which normally renders it useless. And that's when we went online and ordered some of these wireless charging coils. Now we're looking here at two different variants. The first one here, the smaller one, that charges with up to 1 amp. And this bigger version here on the right, that is able to charge with up to 2 amps. So first let me show you how this exactly works. So for one we have here this emitter coil. This is the one that we're going to connect to our power source. In this case here, this needs a 5-volt input. And that is exactly the same as what we normally get through a regular USB charging cable. And that is exactly what we're going to use in our experiment here. We just connected the emitter coil to a regular USB-A cable. And then we have here the second coil, which is the receiving coil. And here you see this little board on the end that converts the electricity back to regular 5 volts. And this is what we're going to use to charge our speaker. So now let's make sure that these two components actually really work. So we have connected the emitter coil to our USB port, and then we have here a voltmeter that we're connecting to the second coil. And now in order to transmit the energy here, we're going to get really close with these two coils, and then eventually you see here pretty much exactly 5 volts coming out at the second coil. Now before we start installing one of these coils, we have to look at how many amps a speaker requires in order to charge. So in case of the Clip 3 here, this one only charges with up to 1 amp, which means it is sufficient for us to install the smaller coil. But in case you're trying to do this with a bigger speaker, then it's likely that you may need to use a bigger coil, which is able to transmit higher amperage. Okay, so now it is finally time to disassemble our speaker. So first we took off the grill, the cover here, and then underneath we find a whole bunch of screws. This is very similar for many other speaker models as well. Then also when we take off the front here, then we want to be really careful because there usually is a couple of wires still connected to it, and we want to make sure we don't accidentally rip those off. Then we have here the PCB, which is also screwed to the plastic case, and as soon as we take this out, now we find here on the very bottom this battery. And I think that is probably the best location to install our coil at. So if we install the coil right underneath here, then we can transmit the energy here from the bottom by just putting this here on our emitter coil. Okay, so now in order to remove the battery, we have to be really careful because those batteries are usually very fragile and they are damaged really easily. So we want to be really careful. So I'm going to pry this loose here, and really have to be careful with this. Don't puncture the battery accidentally and don't bend it too much. If it is really difficult to remove, then it's better to take your time and do it slowly instead of damaging it. Next we're going to prepare the connection from the coil to the PCB. Now we still have here the original cable and connector that came from the charging port and went to the PCB, and we're not going to use this in the future anymore because the charging port is damaged. So I'm just going to cut this off here, and then we can reuse this connector for our new assembly. Luckily the wires are all color coded, so you want to put the two black ones together and the two red ones. Then we're going to solder these and protect them with some shrink tube. Then it is time to install the coil on the bottom of the speaker here. We just put it right into the center, and I'm going to use some hot glue in order to fixate it right in position. Now we can already start to reassemble everything. So first we're going to put the battery right on top of the coil, and the battery is still sticky enough for it to actually stay in place. So I don't need extra glue here. Then we need to find a route for our wiring here, the power cables, to be able to connect this back onto the PCB. And then we also need to find a good spot for this little tiny board that comes with the coil. So we have to find a safe place for that where it doesn't get into contact with other components and eventually causes a short. So we want to prevent that. We found a pretty good spot up here, Then in order to prevent it from moving in the future, I'm going to use some additional hot glue here. I'll just put a couple of dots, one on the right, one on the left, and that will keep it in place and always secure. In the meantime, we also already connected the cable or the plug to the PCB, so everything at this point is wired correctly. And now we can just continue with the reassembly. So we're going to screw down the PCB again, and then eventually we're going to close up the speaker and add all of the remaining screws. Last part, of course, is to add the grill right on top. And then we are ready to try out our new wireless charging system here for the JBL Clip 3. First we have here the emitter coil, and then we're going to close with the speaker. And remember, the charging coil is at the bottom of the speaker, so if we just put it right down on there, we do see the charging LED illuminating, and when we pull it away again, it stops charging. So we put it back down. This speaker is charging successfully, so our conversion here from micro USB to wireless charging was successful, and now we can continue to use the speaker, and we don't even need the USB cable to charge it anymore. Just in case you're trying to do this on a speaker that is bigger than the Clip 3 here, remember that it is possible that you may need a more powerful coil, so just like the one that I'm showing you here. Okay, so this was already it for this video. I hope you found the information helpful, and if you have any more questions or comments, then please leave a message below.